Hi, my name is Tim Bale and I am co-director of the Mile Institute at Queen Mary University of London. Welcome to another in our series of videos on Covid-19. This video features Gabriel Lawson, who is a PhD student in the School of History at Queen Mary University of London, and his research area is on the mental health of prisoners of war during World War II. In the video, Gabriel is going to talk about their experiences of isolation and displacement in relation to Covid-19. If you enjoy the video, please do tell other people about it, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to find out more about the Mile Institute, then go to our website and sign up for our newsletter.
Hello, I'm Gabriel Lawson, a first-year PhD student in the School of History at Queen Mary, looking at mental health and captivity. Today I'd like to talk about the emotional impact of Covid-19 and the difficulties presented by the easing of restrictions. The last 3 months have seen an unprecedented transformation in the way we live. The UK and much of the wider world remains under various forms of lockdown, restricting the movement of individuals and prohibiting non-essential social contact. Comparisons to the Second World War have perhaps been too prevalent since the pandemic began, but debates focused on the supposed Blitz spirit inherent in the UK population have ignored another more fitting example. Prisoners of war experienced social isolation and displacement for lengthy periods of time and left a variety of sources describing the psychological impact of distance and dislocation. Kept at a distance from the immediate fighting and the possibility of death in battle, British POWs nevertheless found themselves separated from their homes, families and normal lives for an indefinite period of time. Boredom, loneliness and isolation were widely felt as prisoners attempted to fill their time and keep in touch with those they'd left behind. As time wore on, POWs began to describe themselves as stalag happy, a term used to express feelings of irritability, fatigue and depression related to lengthy imprisonment. Neurotic symptoms had been observed in prisoners during the First World War, and by 1939 it was accepted that the abnormal conditions of captivity could lead to psychological distress. Adolf Fischer, a Swiss surgeon and expert on prisoner neurosis, claimed that while solitary confinement was known to have an adverse mental impact on civilian prisoners, their confinement in mass practiced in POW and internment camps could be just as damaging. Loneliness in the midst of company was destabilising, as prisoners chafed at the lack of privacy while simultaneously longing for more familiar companions. Too long in captivity, and it was feared that these feelings of distress would result in permanent personality changes. According to army psychiatrists, prisoners kept captive for lengthy periods were at risk of great changes which proved very much more difficult to reverse, including but not limited to deep and serious bitterness and marked social anxiety or loss of confidence in social relations. This barbed wire disease resulting from prolonged imprisonment and absence from home could produce a myriad of symptoms, but central to this emergent illness was a sense of social anxiety and difficulty engaging with others. Many POWs described experiencing strange dreams, a phenomenon recently reported in the media among those locked down due to coronavirus. At a primal level, the isolation and emotional deprivation of a prison camp robbed individuals of their ability to act as social beings. Psychiatrist Henry Rollin claimed in 1948 that symptoms in prisoners were produced by their inability to satisfy emotionally saturated urges. Captives were deprived of relationships which could have provided them with compassion, tenderness, understanding and comfort, and their natural aggression was turned inwards, resulting in inertia, apathy or depression. Similarly, the natural urge towards construction and the urge to make something of life was frustrated inside the sterile vacuum of prison life. Captivity proved to be so jarring due to the loss of familiar interaction and routine, with prisoners stripped of the social connections and settings which made them feel like themselves. The ensuing feelings of distress and unease could ultimately lead to a total breakdown in morale. Dr. Thomas Main, comparing captivity to the evacuation of children, wrote that the removal of individuals from their existing community produced in some people loneliness and confused distress and dissatisfaction with their new strange society that expressed itself in poor standards of conduct. Feeling this dislocation, prisoners attempted to keep their connection with home alive by writing home as frequently as possible. Writers were allowed to send snapshots or unmounted photographs, and POWs frequently reported that they talked to or kissed these photographs as physical traces of home. Beyond letters and photographs, prisoners attempted to include themselves in the communities they had left behind in any way possible. Sundays were known among prisoners as a time for reliving their lives at home and daydreaming, spending the day with their family, acting out the usual routine. Some prisoners even attempted to synchronise activities with those still at home, for example going to bed at the same time or writing to each other on the same day. On the home front, POWs' families were reassured that they were capable of mentally adapting to their new surroundings and enjoying themselves within the camps. The Prisoner of War magazine, issued to prisoners' relatives, informed readers in May 1942 that probably all the time their lot is nothing like as bad as you think. They have accepted the routine of their new existence and get as big a kick out of the latest Red Cross food parcel or the new books in the library or the latest letter from home as ever you got out of a new frock or the latest Leslie Howard film. At the same time, relatives were frequently reminded of the importance of letters to the prisoners' morale and their responsibility to keep in touch. While those behind barbed wire hoped that liberation would bring an end to their feelings of isolation and ennui, many were sorely disappointed. British prisoners of war spent up to 5 years longing for their release and repatriation, but many experienced feelings of distress on their return. Official reports noted that repatriated prisoners were disillusioned by the contrast between real life at home and the romanticised versions of it which were common in the daydreaming of Stalag life. Psychiatrists described this period of depression as the normal reaction of an individual to disillusionment following a period of social isolation and absence from home. Having spent significant amounts of time dreaming of familiar company and home fires, repatriated prisoners found themselves craving isolation and solitude. Many reported an inability to tolerate the company of friends and neighbours, even for a few minutes. For most repatriated prisoners, this was simply a process of adjustment, as their horizons expanded beyond the limited world of the camp. G.C. Peffer, writing to The Lancet in 1945 to describe his feelings upon being liberated in 1918, said that after years locked away, the sensation of moving as a free man was strange and alarming. For so long had the barbed wire confined him that he felt uncertain if he went more than a short distance from home. At the same time, many repatriates were dealing with a sense of loss, as the world they re-entered was very different to that they remembered. Prisoners interviewed after their return noted that England in wartime was very different from the pre-war England of their nostalgic dreams. While we may see further lifting of restrictions in the coming weeks, it will be important to take the post-COVID world as we find it, rather than looking back to a supposedly better past.